Thank you. Thank you. Listen, if nothing more is said, I've met enough people already that I haven't seen for years. And it's a pleasure to see all of you. Truly it is. Dan called me last year and asked me to do this basic show over in Kansas at his hometown, which happened to be my old zone. Now that's going way back when Moby Dick was a minnow. And I want to tell you something. I thoroughly enjoyed going out there, and as far as going to Kansas. So he called me this year and he said, "You got to help me out." And I said, "Okay, I'll help you on the short strokes. I can't go the whole stroke, but I'll go as long as I can go." And so, ladies and gentlemen, here I am, and I have a great affection, and I've worked on this thing here. I got to get it focused up here. We're having a little difficulty here. I'm going to try to get all this for you. And let me put it this way. I think those of you that know me, 1959, since that time, the Harvester Company, Case IH, and God Bless America has been my byword. I'm very much devoted my life, my family, to the things that happened in the Harvester Company. And I was very, very fortunate to meet some great people in the Harvester Company. I worked with some that used to get so mad at me, they would throw pencils at me, and that's fine. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. And because I got skin that's about that thick on the back. And what I asked Dan, I said, "Dan, what do you want me to talk about? I mean, my Lord, I can do the 50 Series tractor, I can do Jerry Clower stories, I can do South Florida stories. I can write. I even got stories on Dale Cooper driving me around out in Kansas. Now, if you can go from one extreme, he said, "Tell them all." I said, "Well, I can't tell all of them." He said, "They'll have to have lunch break in there somewhere between." So, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is, since 1959 was my life. And in the interim time, my wife and I have been married 56 years, same woman. Now, we've moved 16 times. In those days, you couldn't buy a house unless you had 20% down. We rented a hell of a lot of places, I'll tell you that, until we got our 20%. But we learned to save. And that's the word I keep passed on to my daughters and my granddaughters and grandsons. Save. Save a little bit for the rainy day, because you're going to need it. What happened was, when I made a decision to leave the Marine Corps, I was in 29 Palms. It was a Force Artillery unit. I commanded a platoon of 250 Marines. We had 4 self-propelled guns, range 26,000 yards. I was transferred over to 38-inch because it had nuclear capability, and I was on my way to Okinawa. Now, at Okinawa, your wife doesn't go in the Marine Corps, period, the end, no ifs, ands, buts, or in-betweens. So I had a tough decision. I was able to get on a plane to get back to, and started interviewing for a job. I went to St. Louis, and the district manager in St. Louis at the time was a fellow by the name of O.T. Canute Sletta. I'll call him Orville. He said, "I have no work for you here in St. Louis, but you may have work in..." Give me a car to drive over there. So anyway, I rented a car and drove to Kansas City. I sat in the waiting room to interview for this job. District manager came out, great, big, huge man. His name was Fred Fernault. He's now retired and lives in Portland, Oregon. Fred and I got along very well because I had short hair cut, I trimmed it, cut it high on the sides, and he knew I was in the military some way, somehow. He hired me on the spot, told me to be to work following Monday morning. I said, "Can't do that. I've got to get out of the Marine Corps discharge. I've got to get my wife packed up and a 9-month-old daughter and bring them all the way back to Kansas City." He said, "Well, why don't you take 2 weeks?" I said, "Fine." So here I come. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, when I started with this outfit, I started right here, 3201 McCormick Road, Kansas City, Kansas. I walked in this office building, said be there at 8 o'clock. I'm always early. My wife still gets mad at me with this. Never be late for a meeting of any kind. Always be early. I got there at 7:30. I sat and I sat and I sat. Finally, what happened was a couple people kept coming out, and I put this up here, and it's not that I want to show different people. Now, there's a couple people in here that will make comments because they were their secretaries and answered the phone and all in Kansas City. This young lady right here was the district manager's secretary. This lady right here was a telephone. She handled the telephones. Now here's how the conversation went from 8 o'clock later on. Do you like to have a cup of coffee? Yes, I would, please. She'd go get me a cup of coffee. 30 minutes later, this one would come out and say, did you see this, sign this piece of paper, that all this information about you? We can't find it. Old Bud knew right then. I knew I'd been deep sick somewhere along the way. So I sat there, and finally at 10:30, Jim Garner walks out, the district manager in Kansas City. Jim later went to Oakland, California. He's now buried in Conway, Arkansas. He walked out and he said, I like that haircut. I said, yes, sir. I'm proud of the unit I was in. He said, come on, let's go sit down here. We got to get this thing straightened out. He walked in there, and I was hired by him in less than 5 minutes. Until the day he passed on, he was the best friend that I had in the Harvester Company. He was a gentleman from the word go. He had Arkansas slang all over him, but he was a great man. So anyway, they put me to work. First days on the job, Jim called up and he said, Bud, you got to go run a forage harvester. Nobody else in the office knows how to run one. So I took off on a 560 diesel for Princeton, Missouri. That's way up there in God's country. And here I was pulling a forage harvester, believe it or not, with a 560 diesel. Now you see I'm dating myself. And when I've driven them all. I've driven every one of them. Now, I had to go home. My wife had to go to the grocery store, buy food for the baby herself. Had to get this house straightened up, and here we were. And I'm off for Princeton, Missouri. And the dealer's name at the time had a slang term, so please do not be mad at me. His nickname was Sippin' Cy, and he loved bourbon whiskey. Don't think he didn't. That's where he picked up the term Sippin' Cy. Some of you may know him, may know of him. So anyway, I got the job, and I went to work, and for several years, a lot of people in the company, I got this picture here. Harvester Company has always been big on having meetings, big meeting company. Now, this was showed here. This fellow right here, I got another picture of him here, is Galen Gabriel. Gabe's now the John Deere dealer at Macon, Missouri. He has stores at Rockford, Chillicothe, Palmyra, and there's another Kirksville. But anyway, and he's in the hospital, and by the way, he's going to be out probably in 10 days, and he's really had a tough time. He's had a terrible time. But he's afloat, he's got his cane, he can communicate, and so I think the old Marine's going to make it. I saw him yesterday on our way through. But the Harvester Company's always been great for meetings and taking pictures. So anyway, I pulled this picture off, and I wanted to keep this picture and for posterity. Now here's a picture of Gabe right there. Now the 284 tractor was not one of our better tractors. Let me say that before we even get going. I know of 4 fixed packages that went on the PTO. I don't know if we ever did get it fixed. And I got to be perfectly honest with you. But anyway, I told him the other day, why didn't you get one taken with somebody else? But another different model. But anyway, Gabe's doing fine. He's doing real well. Now, when you start out with a harvester company, in those days, we had to spend 2 weeks in Tifton, Georgia at a training school. And we had to spend 2 weeks at a place called Hickory Hill. Now, I could not find the group that I was with at Tifton, Georgia. But anyway, I was able to find the group that I was with in Hickory Hill. Now you talk about some icons. I want to show you some icons here. Now that's the old motel that's right up there at Hickory Hill. That's where we stayed, right there in that building. Now, this is Doug Kimball right here. Doug was sales manager for years here in Kansas City. The fellow right behind him was a very good friend of mine, William Stanley Orrell, Bill Orrell, Illinois, Missouri. Bill passed away 2 weeks ago. So I lost another good friend right there. This is Leo Try right here. He's in charge of the school. I go over here and start looking around. Don Gardner used to be the store manager in Topeka years ago. And then way over here to the far right, with his hands in his pockets, is a dark-headed young man, me. And you can see the color of the hair start changing as the age and responsibility start picking up. So anyway, we come back, and I was named a zone manager to go to the great state of Kansas. I moved to Topeka. And all the thing I can say is you can go get 50 people, and that was with the Harvester Company, and always ask them what was the best job you had. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you honestly, I enjoyed being a zone manager more than anything that I did in my life, because I inherited right there and learned real quick the two simple basic principles of business. One, people do business with people. And a handshake to me was worth $1 million. And I never lost those two traits. If I shook hands with you, if a deal was a deal. Now by God, I'll put my fine up, you put yours up. But people do business with people. So here I am, a young zone manager, Topeka, Kansas. Now some of you in Iowa, Missouri boy, right there, you can see this is picture. Wait a minute, I got to get focused here a little bit. This gentleman right here, standing beside of me. Joe, how are we doing this? You mean I'm in trouble? All right, I'm in. That's Walt Mayer. Walt was all over the state of Iowa. He's all over the state of North Kansas, all over the state of Missouri. He's buried right now in Camden, Missouri. He's a great man. But I got to tell you a story about being a zone manager. Now, Ed Powell was a speaker here yesterday. Ed was in the service department. I made a couple of mistakes in my life, but one of them was this. I saw a 424 tractor, because that turned 8.5 feet. Went to a lumber yard down in Emporia, Kansas, and I said, okay, this man needs that tractor. And we just introduced a 1501 loader that goes on that tractor. Perfect for a lumber yard. Only one catch. That loader wouldn't pick up hot butter. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, Ed Powell went to Emporia, Kansas, and where it is, I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. But I want to tell Ed, thank you, because we finally, I don't know how much money it cost the Harvester Company to get those cylinders off, to get the pump, the tractor, the engine to perform. But finally we got the loader to work. And I learned a great lesson. Don't be the first to sell something in your lifetime, because it'll come back and bite you right where it hurts. The second thing that happened to me, the service people, great people, don't misunderstand me. Phone rings one day. It wasn't Ed, it was Glenn Miller and Wando Maupin. Glenn calls up and says, before I tell this story, is anyone in here from Harrington, Kansas? Good, I can tell the story.
Well aware of the city.
Where?
Well aware of it.
You're well aware, okay. Now, what happened was, Wando said, we had just had the 806 and said, Bud, there's a farmer out there, big farmer, tough, mean, ornery. We're getting ready to put the second clutch in this 806. We go out there and find out what's going on. Now, Wando Maupin was a very nice, he wouldn't create a fight with you over nothing. So anyway, here I go, pick up Norm Albright in Harrington. We go out to Ewald Kiekhafer's farm. Ewald Kiekhafer was a corporal in the German Army in WW1. So you can see what I was confronted with already, right off the bat. But anyway, when we parked there at the house, we walked around a couple barns. Now all of you, now remember this, there was no cabs in those days. And old Ewall was driving that 806 up the field with that left foot on that clutch pedal, just kind of relaxing it. And all of you've done it. Ewall comes up and he always called me blockhead. And that's when I know I had a friend, when he called you blockhead. Ewall said, "Yeah, there, fix my clutch for the second time." I said, "Ewall, I'm going to fix the clutch today. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do. How are we going to do it?" "Ewall, I'm going to cut your goddamn leg off right there." That German, to this day, of that family still runs Red Equipment. I can tell you that. And he was a great human being that really helped me out. But anyway, there was nothing like a zone manager. And I went from about Abilene all the way to the Olathe. I went from the Call River down to Emporia. And when I took over the zone, the weather was terrible. It was dry. A bunch of farmers came in from Alta Vista, Kansas, and they said, "We got to have a dealership." And Jim Gardner and I go to Alta Vista, Kansas. Now, Jim says there was 12 of them in the room. Said each one of us write a check for $10,000, and we'll have a dealer in Alta Vista, Kansas by tonight. You know what? We didn't get one damn check. And you know what? To this day, there's not a dealer in Alta Vista, Kansas. But the other thing I learned from this, and later it got me a little bit in trouble later on in life, and I'll say this to you. I could put my hand in the ground. It was so dry. And I always remember being able to see those cracks in that ground in Kansas. I never forgot that. And again, it came back in ways that helped me and it haunted me. But in Kansas City, I worked with this gentleman here, and one final thing came up. Just before I was sent to Chicago, Eddie Seidenstricker was our dealer in Macon, Missouri. Now, that's before he went down to Mexico and took on the Yellow Wheel line. Now, let me say something before I get started here. A lot of you have heard me put meetings on before when I was a lot younger. And I always started the meetings off this way, and I want you to understand it. There's two giants in this business. One's got a red hood, and the other one's got a yellow wheel. And I believe it to this day, because if it wasn't for the two of us, the money that we spent on R&D, the products you having today to work with, I want to tell you something, American agriculture would still be in a heck of a mess, because we were the only two that had the technology and the means to pour the money into it. But anyway, I went to Macon, Missouri. Eddie was our dealer. Introduced the 16 forage harvester, and I'm dating myself. We worked all night, half the afternoon, most of the night getting this thing ready. Next morning, we take it out. Eddie's driving the tractor. I made one fatal mistake. Never stand behind something that's moving. And here I was behind that 16. Eddie said, "I'm ready." Boom! I mean, the thing disintegrated. I had metal in my eye. Eddie hauls me off, takes me to the Macon hospital to get my eyes cleaned out. Wando Maupin the next day calls with great audacity. It appears something rubbing against to make all the problems that broke that. You know what it was? Hell, we couldn't even find the forage harvester. It was in there 9 pieces laying all over the field. But anyway, I enjoyed this job as a zone manager. And I never forgot the people that I worked with. Then they called me in one day, and by this time my wife was pregnant, and we'd had 2 miscarriages, long and short of the conversation. They said, "Bud, you're going to Chicago." I looked Jim Gardner in the eye and said, "Mr. Gardner, I can't go. Can't go. I won't go." I said, and told him why. He knew our problems. Got George Self on the phone. Now, you people associated with the Harvester Company will know the name George Self. George Self was in charge of all retail operations. Jim dials him up and said, "Bud, you talk to him." I said, "Mr. Self, I can't come." "It's your little bird up there right now. See you Monday morning." Well, that's the way he talked. Not coming. Long and short of the conversation, for 4 months, I lived in the LaGrange, Missouri YMCA. Cost to the Harvester Company, $35 a week. free train pass. I paid all my bills. They flew me home every other weekend, and my wife's grandmother would travel one day a week from Richmond, Missouri to clean her house because my wife had her feet up like this in the air. Now, don't you think this wasn't something when we got transferred to Chicago, when this little girl comes along, the second daughter of ours, on the morning of 12/14, it was 5 below zero in Liberty, Missouri, and I couldn't get the car started to get my wife to the hospital. And my wife comes out and gets into the car, and I had to get the old choke on the Dodge, those old butterfly. She had to hold down on the choke. I said, start it. Boom! Fire came up out of there, and I thought we blew up the car. Anyway, we got the daughter moved. We got moved. We lived in an apartment, and I went to Chicago. I went up there and spent some time with product a little bit. I spent some time there at Lansing store, and one of the things, I always have this picture here because I look very young there. That's a Cub Cadet that we delivered to Wrigley Field, the 147 hydrostat. Now today they all have yellow wheels. So I don't know what the sales department's doing, but anyway, it's a time. I'm pointing out one of the sales features of a cadet. That was the beer cooler right there. 6-pack and a pack of ice in there, and brother, you can cut a lot of grass with that baby. But anyway, we spent about a little over a year there. I was off in Tennessee, or I don't know, Tennessee or Arkansas, I don't remember. Phone rang one day, it was Jim Skink. Jim said, "Bud, I'll meet you at the airport in the morning. At 8 o'clock, I'll have your airplane ticket. We're going to Jim, what do I wear? Be there at 8 o'clock. Goodbye." Anyway, off to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania I go. Now, to those, is anybody here from Pennsylvania, then I can, anybody at all? Okay, good. Oh, you got one way there in the back. All right. Pennsylvania, if you look at a map, the mountains run this way. And you drive over the mountains, through the mountains, and to get anywhere you want to go. Western Pennsylvania is loaded with snow in the wintertime. Eastern Pennsylvania is all the sophisticated Philadelphia, Valley Forge, all that area up in there. Up in the north corner of it is nothing but mountains. Pocono Racetrack is the only thing of value up there. So anyway, off I go to meet my friends. Now what happened? There it is. All right, now, this fella here, his name happened to be that at one of our meetings, I had fallen again, but I was on crutches. I have this habit of falling and breaking an ankle, twisting an ankle. I'm on crutches a lot. You'll see me another set of crutches. This is Paul Rouse. Paul was a production manager at Farmall Tractor Plant. At the time, I knew Paul, but Paul became a great help to me when I started doing with this up here on the board, and I start telling you that story, because he was a very, very powerful force. This fellow over here, his granddad started with the Harvester Company back in 1888 or whenever it was. His name was Don Shockey. Maybe some of you people know him, have seen him, but that's the great Shockey. Now let me tell you the funniest thing that happened in Harrisburg. Don Shockey had a great idea. Dave Whitmer, Don Shockey, we're going to take some farmers to the Louisville tractor pull. Oh boy, it sounds too good, particularly in February. All right, we go to work. We load them out of Philadelphia. We load them out of Harrisburg. We load them out of Pittsburgh into Louisville. Great tractor show, phenomenal. Great tractor pulls, phenomenal. Get to the airport. Allegheny Airlines, I'm dating myself again. We have a slight problem, sir. Philadelphia and Harrisburg are socked in with 5 feet of snow. I mean, it would really cut loose with snow. Now we can get you to Pittsburgh, but we can't get you to these other 2 destinations. C.B. Hoover was our dealer at Intercourse, Pennsylvania. I called Bud Hoover over and I said, "Bud, this is going to get a little tricky." Now here's what was tricky about it. Can you imagine the phone calls that were made, the questions that were asked? 125 dairy farmers, most of them Amish, and we couldn't get home to milk the damn cows. And I'm going to tell you something. I worried about these cows. That's the first time in my life I worried about a Holstein cow, but I did. We flew into Pittsburgh. I said, well, I'm going to take a shot. We're going to take it. We're going to Pittsburgh. Where are you going to stay? I haven't figured that out yet. Let me get to Pittsburgh. Flew into Pittsburgh. I called in the Hilton Hotel, downtown Pittsburgh, right next to the ballpark. Said, well, we're not ready to open. I said, you're open now because I got 125 coming down. Walk down there and show you how people do business with people. I said, listen, I have no purchase order authority to pay for this. The harvester company, you're going to pay this bill. The guy said, I don't have any food. We're going to go get the food. If you got to cook, we got to cook. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, probably the finest public relations ever occurred was these 125 people in that Hilton Hotel. They were making beds. Now, if you ever saw an Amishman make a bed with sheets, it was worth it seeing. He was having trouble stretching the sheets and everything else. We took the meat back, cooked the meat, cooked the potatoes, did everything. And I signed the bill. Hilton Hotel, signed my name on there, payable to International Harvester Company, Chicago, Illinois. You know what? I never heard a word. Never heard one word. But I did get a lot of praise. Now, let me tell you this. If you ever go to Intercourse, Pennsylvania, C.B. Hoover is now up in the sky, but his son's a dealer there. Now, before you get to where Bud Hoover's place was, you go through a town called Paradise, Blue Balls, and Intercourse. So that's just so that you know exactly and precisely. Now, we're on the same wavelength. You know exactly where you're going. Now, from Harrisburg, I went back into Chicago. They had a habit of calling me back into Chicago. I got into Chicago, and they said, we got a job for you, but nobody really wanted this job, and I understand why they didn't want it. I said, sign me up, coach. I signed up for anything. What it was, I went in there on a product job. But what the product wound up in, I had two bosses, the president of the CE division and Pat Kane, the president of the Ag division. I shared revenue with these two divisions, and they split expenses. Because at the time, CE was coming out with the TD7, the TD8, the 100, and the 125, so I had to get that introduced. And then the Huff people were building some products up there that I'll get into a little bit later on that I was involved in. And then we had Mr. Legler. Mr. Legler was his name, was the president of the CE group. Mr. Legler would not build the pay logger that I wanted. So anyway, we had a big discussion. So here I am, a lowly guy from the Hilton Hotel in downtown Pittsburgh with the president of the Harvester Company here, Pat Kane here, and Jules Legler here. We're trying to decide if we're going to stay in the forestry business. And I want to tell you something. Those were the days now when decisions were tough to come by. And they made some pretty tough decisions. We had to make some pretty tough decisions. But anyway, I stayed with that job. And I did a lot of traveling. Lots of traveling. Then they called me up and they said, Bud, you're on your way to Twin Cities. Now then, Joe, is that the best we can do? This was the regional office in Twin Cities. I'll put it up there as high as I can. You may not recognize some of these people. I was there a little over 4 years. We finally beat the Quad Cities as far as volume was concerned. The embarrassing thing that always happened to me every time I go to a meeting in Chicago with the sales managers, they'd all report. You know, conditions good, this is good. Bud, what's your status? Still got 6 inches of snow on the ground. They're cultivating cotton in the south. But anyway, these guys right here was a great group of people. Now, this fellow right here, George Dennis. George was the marketing man up there at the time. Hector Charbonneau. Anybody here from Minnesota? You had to have heard of Hector Charbonneau. He was Mr. Charbonneau. He was Mr. Harvester Company. There's a lot of people. Now the guy next to it, I believe, he's here in this room right now, and I'm gonna have a little fun with him pretty soon. So, but he was there at this meeting. Here was Tom St. John, Bill Mulder. Here was Stan Lancaster, the divisional sales manager. Morris Johnson, Pat Kane, Dick Morrissey, Bob Gert. And here's this rookie, still got black hair from Missouri, sitting way over in the right flank. At the time in the regions, I had responsibility for the sales department, service department, parts department, distribution department, and the bitching department. And I had a district manager, a regional manager, that you always notice he sat right beside of me. He never left my side. I couldn't get him to agree on anything, and he and I locked horns many a time. And it later got me in trouble. I accept that fact, but it worked out for the best. Great bunch of icons right here. The pictures will be up here for you to look at. Now, here's another group of icons. It was at the Twin Cities. O.T. Canute Saletta. Orville now is up there in the big sky fishing. This is W.E. Daniels, Wendell Daniels. You people from Missouri and Iowa may remember Wendell in southern Minnesota. I went to his 65th wedding party 2 weeks ago. Ozark, Missouri, getting along fine. Glenn Peterson, Ron Sabota. This fellow over here is Bill Orrell. Bill passed away 2 weeks ago. But anyway, they went fishing. Occasionally we would have time. They did. While they were fishing, I was worrying about something else, into something else, so I didn't get to do much fishing with those fellas. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, one day Bob Dirk calls me in and he says, "You're done, you're toast, you're out of here." I said, "What do you mean, you fired me?" He said, "No, you're going to Chicago." Now, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't mind going back to Chicago because I knew a lot of people there and I knew my way around. I knew my way around the building. But I got into Chicago, and the divisional sales manager was Stan Lancaster, John Burke, Pat Keene, and I walked down into Pat Keene's office, and here they all were down there. "Hi, bud, how are you?" "Yeah, okay, boys, what's the slaughter? Here's the slaughter, boy. The lamb has just arrived. Let's throw the meat to him right now." They hand me a sheet of paper like this. I don't know if you can see it that good, but anyway, here was the programs of the late 70s. And they said, "This is yours. Handle it. We don't want to hear from you." 2+2 tractors, 50 series tractor, P1 to P4 axles. Now, I'll talk about that in just a minute. Here's the Huff line, 510s, 15 to 520s. At the time, we were involved with Kemco in Japan. Here's the S11 pay logger. We'd already introduced the S8. Doncaster tractors. We made the 84 series, 74 series, 64 series tractors in Doncaster. They gave me that responsibility. Noise program. Now, at Noise, let me say this to you. These tractors were made in England. These were English tractors, Doncaster. This was all German. Now, let me tell you, you're going to meet him with the Germans. You'll never notice if you own a 50, 52, 54, 88. The levers are that big around. The Germans have a motto: if you can bend it, it's no good. So they made everything as big as they could make it. And we really got into a deal here, but I can say this, because to save time and money, believe me, we took those tractors and we had BMW design the cab. So if you own a 50 series, one of those 50, 52, 54, that's a BMW Bavarian Motor Works cab. They designed it for us. Steiger models, 43, 45, and 47s. You got the highest warranty claims going in the business. What are you going to do? How are you going to fix that? It's time out, time out. You got to get the 56 lines all changed over. You got to get farm oil. You got to get the new tooling in there. And we got to get ready to go with some other stuff. And lo and behold, phone rings. Ladies and gentlemen, I had 2,647 Mexican tractors sitting at a fairgrounds in San Antonio, Texas that nobody knew a damn thing about. Now, I have to say to you this. This was a load. And please understand this, and I'll say this with the best way that I know how to say it, my own Missouri slang way. In the late 70s, the Harvester Company was starting to come under a lot of pressure. There was a lot of things, a lot of programs that were cut. People. There was, and turmoil among people is the worst thing that you can have. Believe me. If you don't have any money, but if you got good people, you can make it happen. We were having all different, tremendous problems. And all these programs required people. Now, I just sit here and I started trying to do the best I could. So I went to engineering and I said, all right, let's start with item 1. Well, in December of 1979, I went before the board of directors of the International Harvest Company and asked for $1 million. $1 million, that's a lot of money. And I laid out for him the exact show that would be in Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to bring every dealer salesman in there, and they were going to see this tractor. Now, they were going to not only see the tractor, they were going to drive the tractor. Because the biggest problem we had to overcome was getting people in the seat to convince them that that anteater wouldn't fall apart, it wouldn't turn and hit them, it wasn't going in the ground, the brakes would stop, and the hood wouldn't fall off every time. Now that was a big load, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tell you, that was a big load. But there's two things that was happening in the marketplace at this time, and you all remember this. No-till, ridge till, bed till. There's so many tills came in, I got tired of spelling them. We got into such things in that era that planters were doing this and chemicals were doing that. And it really became, you had to know what you were doing, really, truthfully and honestly. And so I knew that tractor would never sell unless I had this $1 million. I left Brooks McCormick's office with $1 million, and ladies and gentlemen, we brought the people to Phoenix, Arizona, and introduced the 2+2 tractor. Now, let me say this. I don't care if you like it, you hate it, cuss it, I don't care what you do. This tractor did things for the American farmer that nobody yet to this day has ever done. And they're never going to get it done. Not even my friend with the yellow wheels can back that thing in the field. Now, we just sat there and looked at it. First time I drove it, the hood fell off. One of the things in this $1 million was, I said, I want every SPK, I want the service department cleaned out. I want those tractors dynamometer tested. We're saying it's 150 PTO horsepower. I don't want 148. Fred O'Donnell was in charge of engines. Fred O'Donnell had a philosophy. Some of you people don't know Fred. Fred's a big guy. Bless his heart. Their engine will grow into 150 PTO horsepower. I don't want that crap. We're going to start at 150, let it grow a little more. Fred and I got our fighting over with, and I got my 150 PTO horsepower set at Phoenix Proving Grounds. And they were all set. We went out with each one of the fellas. They did their driving. They asked questions. Now, the Phoenix tractor, the 2+2, the credit for the success of that tractor belongs to every gentleman right there in that picture. I mean it sincerely. Engineering did a wonderful job. But every one of those people right there are the people that took a dealer salesman, and put them into the tractor and taught them how to drive that tractor. And to this day, I'm eternally grateful for those icons. Because those icons were told before this show that this tractor was the Sunday punch for the Harvester Company. We had to have this tractor. We had to have this volume. We had to have these profits. And there will be no exceptions. And we set out. I'm telling you, once the ground rules were laid, we took off. Now, each one of these fellas had a different station to work. We also had sent out there, so that you all know, maybe your dealers or salesmen told you this, we had a 4840 Deere power shift. Now, I had the word power shift rammed down my throat until I was blue in the face. I hated that word power shift. But anyway, I thought the only way I'm going to cure this 180 plus horsepower Deere tractor with a power shift is I'm going to have that 150 horsepower 3588 work beside of it. And we set up a skit. Now, my cohort and villain in this skip was this gentleman right here. His name was Chuck Laser. You might know him from Kentucky, Ohio. He was born in Iowa. He now lives down in Florida. He was the villain. He had me dressed up in a John Deere green jacket and a green shirt and a green hat. And he was in charge of the 4840 power shift. 300 yards down the road, we hooked to offset disc carrols. And when we said go, the tractor started up the field, pulling these offset disc carrols. We did it 110 times. I think the yellow wheels beat me 5. And when we left there, everybody saw that what we had, that we proved ourselves that the principle of an all-wheel drive, same size tires, front, same size tires rear, was exactly what we needed, because in a minute I'll show you something else that we were looking down the road for. So when I see this, then I turn to this and I say, okay, some of you gentlemen here may own that tractor 1206. I would say that this was the height of the pride in the Harvester Company as far as the employees were concerned. If you, at this era, when that tractor hit the market, the other wheels were heading for the ditch. I'm serious. We had something nobody else had, a turbocharger. And we marketed that, and we had great pride, and we could shift the gears. You can't push that clutch down, let up, say Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, and the gears would work. They worked every time. The people, when we left Phoenix, I want to tell you, the dealers were sky high. In the PMM, Production Market Report, I was to have orders for 3,000 2+2 tractors. We placed orders for 6,000 tractors. 6,000 tractors. From every dimension, from all-wheel drive, dual wheels, PTOs, I don't care what it was. And when the show was finally over, ladies and gentlemen, we built almost over 14,000 2+2 tractors. That's a lot of tractors. A lot of tractors. And they proved their worth and they proved their value. Now, time marches on. Now we're in 1980. I'm upside down again. Here came the home run pitch. Now, this tractor was getting ready at the same time we were doing this one that we was introducing the 2+2s. We were selling Mexican tractors.
What kind of transmission did that tractor have?
I'm sorry?
What kind of transmission did that tractor have?
I apologize. I can't hear what you're saying.
What kind of transmission did that tractor have?
Pull it down.
Transmission.
I'll get into that in just a second. Now, this tractor right here cost the Harvester Company and a couple of these other programs $250 million. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to look you now and tell you this. We stole money from combines, we stole them from cotton pickers, we stole them from disc carrols, we stole them from planters, we stole them from people's salaries because we all got a 5% pay cut at about that same time. But that tractor rolled down the line. Now, this was the home run pitch. Now, the dealers got a little upset with us right at first until they knew the big battle plan. But anyway, they come a-rolling. Now, I was off down seeing Paul Roush at Farm All Plant. Farm Progress Show, Galesburg, Illinois, 1981. I don't know how many of you were there. Yeah, I worked it. Not at the time. We had hired a company because we had done such a good job with the 2+2. They thought, well, we better get somebody else to introduce this tractor, and they did. First show was 9 o'clock in the morning. They fired the whole bunch at 9:30. You know what the word was? Where in the hell is Bud Youle? He's at Farm All Plant. Matt, get him down here. Helicopter, airplane, boat, motor, crane. Get him here. Ladies and gentlemen, I reported to the show. They gave me the script. Was that thick. Band in the back. Curtains that moved. tractors had come to me and doors had opened. I didn't know what they were doing. And I started. I took this book and I said, I'm going to do it like Sinatra says, my way. And what I did, I went back to my days in the Marine Corps. And I knew two things. If I could keep moving and talking and pointing, I would get every point across, and I wasn't a damn bit worried about what that band did or didn't do. The band learned what I was doing. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a great introduction. This thing got me also in big trouble because I wound up having to go all over the world damn near, doing the same show over and over again. Now, my friends with the yellow wheels were up in the back row and they took pictures of me. They really had a big time taking pictures of me. Meeting was over with, they'd come down, they'd look. I'd show them everything they wanted to show. If somebody come up to me and asked me a question from Yellow Wheels, from Massey, I'd tell them. I don't have anything to hide. It's too late anyway. The molds are set. We're making iron right now at Farm Walls. They're rolling down the line. I thought, and we all thought, right here in 1981, we thought, this is it. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. Now, I fell off another roof, and I wound up now sitting in the ring with this powertrain and explaining it to people. We boxed that thing up and sent it all over the United States. And I'd sit there and I'd take a look at this axle and this here, people ask questions, and we'd explain it. Now let me tell you something. And I'm going to do this from memory the best I can do it. I told you first we had a P1, 2, 3, 4 axle. Now you guys are going to figure out something here pretty quick about me. These axles were designed, inboard brakes, inboard planetaries. Those axles not only fit this machine, our tractors, every combine and cotton picker, they fit it. Now, don't you think that wouldn't have been a dandy? A dandy. Now let's get up here in the transmission. We built 6 speeds and 3 ranges. Why'd you do that? We go back to our basic, it's created a lot of conversation. Remember now, we were the first to have the hydrostat in the combines and 86 series tractors. We knew there was value in the hydrostat. We didn't know how to get it to its peak efficiency. That was the thing that was bothering us. And that was the thing that drove us crazy. But this whole box up here was where ultimately the power shift set. Now, Dan, could you turn the lights on just for a second? And I'll show you here. I wrote these on the board in 1982. We were to come with the MFD, mechanical front wheel drive. Now, the beauty of our front wheel drive, the shaft on that lower end of that housing is a direct line to the PTO and direct line to the differential. It's a true MFD. That baby was due coming 82, 83. Now remember now this is all the P&M report. Power shift, 18-speed full power shift. 6 speeds, 3 ranges, but all in straight gear. The Germans got into it. We had to have a 40-kilometer 19th gear, so we put the 19th gear in it. So now it's a 19-speed power shift. 1985, we had a brand new cab going on that. The whole line, 2+2s, 50 series, and some other things that I don't even want to get into. And then in 1985, the thing that I really was hammering for was to occur at one time. We knew, we had run enough tests to know this, that if I could take that hydrostat lever, and if I had a means of hydraulically holding that speed for that planter at 4.7 miles an hour in that range, or if I wanted a disc at 6.2 miles an hour, we could do it. We've come up with the vary range. as an option for every one of those tractors. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to tell you, if the Lord had let this happen, there would be one giant in this business today, I can tell you that. One, because I knew what the combine people were doing at the same time. And I knew we had a new picker coming, because a lot of pieces from those machines were coming right out of Farmall. This company would have been sky high. Now, the only thing we didn't have was James Diamond. J.P. Morgan Chase is our banker. Now, we sent this tractor to the Louisville Farm Show. Note the hair is now starting to get gray. It's about time. We called back because people told us you're not going to get anything else. We would have a cotton picker and a combine and a tractor, a regular farm show. You're going to have one. Well, they said, you better not get into that right now. Just leave that 5088 sitting right in the middle of the room. Okay? I don't argue with people anymore. Next morning, we were Case IH. Now, when I go back over this board here, and I start sitting here looking at this board, this is where I got myself in trouble. Those of you that know me know I will tell you the facts. I'll lay it on the table. And I won't back off. I knew this would never happen. I knew this would never happen. I knew that might happen. That would happen. That would happen. But this year I'm going to miss. And I want to write you some numbers down. I want you to just think about these numbers in a minute. I'm going to show you something. 7288, 200 PTO. I'm talking PTO. Now everybody talks engine day. I'm talking PTO, old-fashioned Nebraska test, PTO. 7488, 275. 7688, 350. 7888, 425 PTO horsepower. Now you know what powertrain we were going to use? You know what powertrain it was? That one I had up there just a minute ago. Right, exactly. That right here was spread out across all the tractors and 2+2 line, a complete 2+2 line. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I got to be honest with you. I really wasn't worried about the Steiger, because in these two tractors right here, Fred O'Donnell liked the crap when he found this out. They had the Cummins L10. I'm going to give you another little secret. Please, don't go do it, but I'm going to give you a little secret. The clutch housing on every tractor that rolls out of Racine, Wisconsin, clutch housing will accept the Cummins L10 engine. That's how far we were. That's how close we were. Now, I got to keep going. After the merger took place, I was the last one to be told I had a job. That's really encouraging. I didn't know whether to, and the bad news was, let me tell you what the bad news was. The Harvester Company had a policy that if you had 25 years and you were fired, terminated, or left the company, you could retire as of 30 years. Jim, is that right? Am I close to that? Somewhere along in there. I had 24 years, 9 months. I won't tell you so. I was a good boy for 3 months. I didn't say anything to anybody. Finally, they called me in and they said, Bud, we've got a lot of things happening. We want you to be part of it. But we want you to go out and talk to people. I said, okay, fine. I'll go out and talk and do whatever you want me to do. So anyway, you notice the hair, changing colors, new flags. And away we went. One day the phone rings. A gentleman named was Jim Hill and Bob Brunick. Would you please come to Racine? Now I'm going to Racine, not Chicago. We want to start an organization called Major Accounts. And we want you going out and calling on select customers from Bangor, Maine to Walla Walla, Washington, Lake Charles to the Hudson Bay. You have no boss. The only boss is me. And you work your sixes off, and we want the business. And by God, that's all we needed to hear. Now, my buddy on the West Coast was Bob Ross. Now, he had cars parked in every airport that you can think of. Fargo, Denver. He'd fly into me. He never rented a car in his life, but he owned an automobile. He'd go in every city. I went at it with the point of getting to know these people. In a minute here, I can discuss with you some of the things, but right now is what we did, we set out with people. Now, this was the Mississippi group. This is Jack Johnson. He was at Greenwood. I think Jack's in a rest home right now. This is Jim Hill. There's the old right-hander right here, gray-headed. So it's caught up with me. The guy right back here is right sitting over, Joe Neville. Frank Mitchner, Jim Wilkins. The point is I'm making, we use the resources of Tenneco Air Force to fly these customers in and out of the plants. And one day it started to click. It started to click. I mean, when it started to click, people kept saying, what are these guys doing? I mean, there was flat car loads of Fargo tractors heading to Florida. There were flat car loads heading to Texas. There were combines going to place. Now, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you a funny story. A man's in this room here also. I had a 1688 combine in Florida to be one of these big major accounts. He had 4 or 5 deer combines. I don't know what he had. Doesn't matter. But he raised a lot of corn. I got into conditions that I had never before, in the name of God, seen in a cornfield. I saw trees this big around growing up in the cornfield. Jim Minahan came down. He says, where are we going? I said, that field right over there. They both of us were almost fired because they couldn't believe their stuff going. He took pictures. And they said, you'll tear up the machine. No, we're not going to tear up any machine. But we started. That combine went from there, that combine went down to Belgrade, Florida. I had an idea for U.S. Sugar. I said, look, you got to put mulch in. You got to get some straw in this ground. This is muck. And they started raising rice. We own the rice business right now in Southern Cal, Florida. We do. It's all done with an axial flow. Now, we kept on bringing people in. This group right here is from Iowa. Now, this was the Iowa Farm Growers, because at the time we were joining the Soybean Association, the Corn Association, Rice Association, Potato Association. We were going to all these meetings. But anyway, these are the guys, we brought them in the plant one time. Had a great meeting. Now, we're still dealing with various deals. So what happened was, one day the phone rang. Bud? Yep. Did you do us a favor? Yep. We're getting complaints from the dealers that Deere's tractors, MFDs, are turning shorter than ours. Something's wrong. So anyway, we're going to San Antonio, Texas, and we're going to put on this show. Now, the reason I'm standing behind that tractor like this is some of you may have heard this story. Some of you may not have heard this story. When Deere introduced the 50 series tractors, I saw them before any harvester man did, because I saw them wax them outside the New Orleans Superdome. I was in the lounge on top of the New Orleans Superdome having a Budweiser beer. When the door opened, man came up to me and said, I'm Vice President of Security for the John Deere Company. You're under arrest. I am? What the hell did I do? Now here's the policeman. He was going to put handcuffs on me. I said, no, you're not going to put those on me. No. Anyway, the whole thing was, Harvester Company was having a meeting back at Farm Hall. The guys were waiting for me to get back to tell them what this tractor looked like. What was the horsepower? What was the turning radius? And here I was, they were going to march me off to jail. But anyway, we got the information. People knew it. And a lot of people from the yellow wheel line have fun to this day, still kid me about this. But that's what happened when we got down to San Antonio, Texas. What I did was this, real simple. I learned this the hard way. Rather than me do it, I went out and got the dealers. That's okay. Here's a Deere tractor right off the truck, the way they ship them from Waterloo. Fine. You drive that tractor, start right here. There's your center point. You turn it, stop. Everybody draw the lines. Everybody did. Bring up the red tractor. Do the same thing. Draw the lines. Then I took a 9130 row crop tractor out of Steiger. Did the same exact thing. It almost turned back on the same tracks it went in on. Gentlemen, the meeting was over with in 30 minutes. And we ended that story about turning radius right quick. Because people were not willing to try, seek, and find out why. Talking about icons, about this time, here's a couple of gentlemen here. This was your product manager of the 850 series tractor. Bob Oliver was his name. This gentleman sitting here in the chair, right over here, needed that chair. His name was Ed Harnack. Now, at their retirement party, they made me spend $10 for those seats because I rubbed our hard-riding seats in their nose so many times they got mad at me. And I gave them seats for their retirement. I thought that was very appropriate. They didn't like it, but they still got the seats. Now, Tenneco, Tennessee, I got in and out of the region, did different things. Now, this picture here, you're probably going to recognize a lot of people here. This is Big Raymond. When you travel with Ray Byerman, I want to tell you something. Soon as it's 6 o'clock at night, shut her down. You know where Raymond headed for? Hooters. He was a great individual. He could communicate. He knew people. I'm sorry to say that he's up there helping the Lord right now get his bean crop ready. Great man. A lot of you may have seen this guy at shows, Camille Barrett and his wife Merce. It's Terry Snack, and there's an old right-hander. So we're there from Marion County, Missouri. We kept going. We were just in there trying to push in and screaming. Now, you want to talk about some icons. Ladies and gentlemen, does anybody know who that is? Now, some people in there I've already told, so don't. Soybean Convention, St. Louis, Missouri. This gentleman right here, his name is Stan Musial. I had the greatest conversation in the world with him. Great individual. Lenore, Pennsylvania. Great individual. Great man. It's finally one day, after about 34 years, I was sitting on a bale of hay. And I knew the end of the line was coming. You just kind of get that feeling every now and then when it's about your time. I didn't know what else I could do. I didn't know where else to go. I had seen a lot of people come. I'd seen the same people go. Old harvester people you could always go up and pat them on the back. You sit back, and I was sitting there thinking that time when the president of the Iowa Association, Mr. Neville, the national director. Now, he's going to tell you a different story. At Phoenix, the Chinese delegation included, I thought the whole Chinese Department of Agriculture was coming to Phoenix. There were so many plane loads. And the guys drove each one of them out and let them drive the 2+2. This lady was in charge of it. Her name was Miss Fan. When she came about a year later, the phone rang. Bud, there's a dinner downtown Chicago. Would you and Joe Neville, because they want to be dinner? I said, yeah, I'll find Joe. So I found him. Off we go into the wild blue yonder. Now, when you have a meeting like this, let me tell you what takes place. It's a big, long room. Guy gets up from China. To the President of the United States. Whoop. drops it. Pretty soon, the guy from the United States gets up to the Premier of China. Whoop! These Chinese drinks. Now, the last thing that I remember, we were down to the Secretary of Defense, you know. Now, let me tell you the worst part of this whole affair. Joe Neville and I get into the car. And he said, I'll drive home. He couldn't back out of the driveway. We're heading up the Eisenhower Expressway for the Hinsdale Engineering Center. The next morning at 7 o'clock, mind you, we had to be at the airport at Midway for the Tentacle flight because these same Chinese people, we had to take them to North Dakota. Now I want to tell you, when I walked in the house, my daughters to this day say, Dad, you were the stinkingest man I've ever been around in my life. And I was. But anyway, the only thing I can say at this point, I met some great people. I want to take a few minutes here. And could you turn the light on, Dan, just for a second? I made this bucket. I'm a great bucket guy. Always have been. I guess for those of you that don't know it, that's about all we got left. At home, I spend, whenever it's called upon, we have an honor guard that we do funerals. And we do them for fallen veterans. And we're asked to go as far away as 100 miles. Now, some of them we just can't go. We're pretty good. We're pretty sharp outfit, special uniforms and all. The money that we get from this, we use in a fund to give other veterans an airplane ride back to Washington, D.C. Sometimes when you're doing things like this, it becomes emotional, and when the widow comes out, we're still standing there at parade rest. That M1 rifle is that way. I can still do all this stuff. That old M1 was right here. She came by. I went to attention. She walked up to me and said, "Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it." And I tell you, I got this book in the mail, and it's the Star Spangled Banner of this little girl going around. Now, I'm a G.I. Joe. I've had two big wishes in my lifetime. One, I wish that I could go talk to every high school senior class in this United States and tell them what this book's all about. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. Number two, one of the proud days of my life was when I held up my right hand and took the oath of allegiance to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, so help me God, and was sworn into the Marine Corps. Now, I know a lot of people think maybe that's funny, you can't do this and you can't do that, but I loved every bit of it. And I get kind of wrapped up sometimes in it, but anyway, I'm looking down through here, and I can't, here it is. 2 years ago, I don't know if I'll be able to make this because you people are awful good audience. And I'll do the best I can. Professional people were putting this on, and I was so impressed with it, I asked for it. And it goes something like this. I walked through a country courthouse square on a park bench, and an old man was sitting there. I said, "Your courthouse is kind of run down." He said, "No, it will do for our little old town." I said, "Your flagpole kind of leaning a little bit, and that ragged old flag you got hanging on it." He said, "No, have a seat." So I sat down. He said, "Is this your first visit to our little old town?" I said, "Yes." He said, I don't like to brag, but we're proud of that ragged old flag. You see, we got a little hole in that flag on Washington across the Delaware. It got burned. Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner. They got a little rip at New Orleans. It was almost lost at the Alamo. We got a cut from a sword at Chancellorsville. Got a good cut again at Shiloh Hill. There was Mr. Lee, Mr. Beauregard, and Mr. Bragg. And the south wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. On Flanders Field in WW1, she took a bad hit from a Bertha. She turned red after WW2. She hung limp and low. And by the time this one was through, she was in Korea, Vietnam. And she was there when she was sent by Uncle Sam. The Native Americans, the black, the yellow, the whites, all shed blood for that Stars and Stripes. And there in her own good land, she is abused, she's burned, she's dishonored, denied, and refused. And the very government for which she stands has been scandalized throughout the land. And getting threadbare, she's wearing kind of thin, but she looks pretty good. Because she's been through the fire before, and she can take a whole lot more. She would raise her up every morning, and we'd burn her down every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her upright. On second thought, I do like to brag, because I'm mighty proud of that rugged old flag. So, I guess, ladies and gentlemen, between that rugged old flag and taking an oath in the Marine Corps, is why I'd like to talk to every young high school person there is in the United States. I'm running out of time, I accept that fact, but I still like to have a shot. Now, I got some more icons in here. I'm going to go fast with these, because I just want you to look up. You might recognize some of these pictures. Some of them I will know, and some of them I can point out to you. Your speaker yesterday was right here, Ed Powell. This gentleman right here was in Nebraska for years, Jim Ring, a Missouri boy. We buried Jim about 10 years ago. Now, there's other people up there that you may know or you may not know. Now, there's a guy over here. That's not him. I'm on the wrong sheet. I've got to get that. Let me go to this next one. Now, here's Doug Kimball. Here's Bob Ross. Maury Store organized, used to ride to Canada on the flights all the time. Larry Toner. Marshall Hahn. I mean, I'm bringing up names that I've known for 50 years. Dewey Davis. Oh, my Lord, did he ever get me in a lot of trouble. Eddie Bourgeois. B.W. Cunningham. Let me tell you about B.W. Cunningham. I'm the district parks manager, Kansas City, Missouri. He said that so many times, and he was the only man in the Harvester Company that never moved 5 feet. Had the same job for 35 years. But he's still selling 304 101 fuel fillers to the Lord up there, and he's doing a good job. Jack Potter. I go, Lester Hearn. Some of you may have had Lester as a serviceman. He was a dandy. Oh boy. Oh, Lester come rolling in. You had to check his 6, make sure he was all. Now, I got a picture right here of this guy over in this corner right here. See this guy here? V.W. Vaughn Allen, service rep, Nebraska. Holy Lord, did that guy ever get me in trouble? Let me tell you what he did in Phoenix. You ready for this? Here we are. We're out here at the show. We're around all these people. Here comes 2 people. He's got a cane, sunglasses on. He's blind. He can't see. He's playing like he's a blind person. He's talking to everybody. He's just shaking hands. He don't know what the hell he's doing. He gets in and has too many Budweisers that night. Who gets the call to come help? You got it. There we were. We got him out of there. But there he is right here. He'll be on the program later on. He's got his rebuttal time coming. Excuse me. It's fun to do these things. Now this Al Hoover was the distribution manager when I started in Kansas City. Tom DeWitt was in Kansas City at the same time. I just, Webb Eubanks Center, Carl Wells, these are people that I call icons, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Don Blaker, right here. Don Blaker was, when I went to the Topeka store, was the accountant. I mean, I know Don Blaker like just a great friend of mine. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking around and looking here at these other people. It's Dick Anderson. He was store manager at Carrollton. He lives still in Carrollton. Houston Zimmerman. He's working for the Lord right now. Bill Wolf. E. Poston. He was the industrial store manager there in Kansas City. Great individual. Great. I mean, you had to understand Earl to get along with him. Wait a minute, what happened to my machine? Lost my machine. Phil Poffenberger. I understand Phil's no longer with us. But anyway, I'm looking here at all these people. I'm talking about icons. I'm talking about what could have happened. What could have happened. I'm sitting here and I'm sitting here and I'm sitting here looking at all these people. There's Bill Spangler from Holden, Missouri. He's the one who sent me to Princeton on that 560 diesel. Bless his heart. He lives out in Kansas now. Now, you know, I guess old faces do old things. Now then, you're probably going to recognize a couple of these people here. This is Jack Simmerad. He had the zone below me. For years. He's out in Kansas now. Great product guy. All you had to do with Jack was get him on your side to go to work. This man here is L.F. Larry Klaus. His nickname was Cluso, the inspector. Anytime that I ever entered the state of Missouri, I'd say I'm entering Missouri, but how's everything in Malda Bend? Because that's where he's from, Malda Bend. And the soil is 67.7 feet deep in Malda Bend, Missouri. It's richer than the Nile Valley, and I've seen them both. Richard Anderson. Dick, he's a Kansas boy now, and I knew him very well. Now, you see, I can get hung up in memories and do a lot of things. So, but I guess a lot of people have asked me, that, Bud, if you ever had your successes? Yeah, I had a lot of successes. First, one of the big successes I had was Matt Rogowski, the plant manager at Farmall. There's two, let me put it this way. The name John Deere 2840 I despise. Because everybody in the harvest got me. Dale Cooper and all of them. When are you going to get an 80 horsepower tractor? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? Oh, there it is. You got a load of orders right there. Did you get it? Was it an order? He got to go. He got it. Let me tell you what he did, and I'm going to let out another harvester secret to you. The 786 tractor was born at Farmall plant one morning. It's exactly the same tractor as an 886. There is no difference except the decal. And that's how I got 80 horsepower. It's exactly what happened. Matt Rogowski, I said, give me some orders. I called Cooper and the boys up, give me some orders. We got orders. Now, one of the funniest things, well, I don't want to say this is funny. This 80 horsepower tractor got its way into Florida. Now, a 786 is too big to go through orange groves. Anybody in here from Florida? Okay. It's too big to go down orange groves. But that 2840 was in the orange groves. And old Bud had about all of that 2840 in Florida that he wanted. Here's what it did. I violated policy, violated procedure. I did everything wrong. I knew that there was a turbocharger that would fit that 239 engine because the same one we had on the TD8 and the 125. I put turbocharger on an 884. I went to Ben Hill Griffin, Mr. Ben Hill Griffin. He built the football stadium at the University of Florida. Mr. Ben Hill Griffin gave us an order for 50 of them. Now, Bud Youle forgot one thing. I'm going to tell you what it is. One thing. They ran like hell until the radiator, they didn't take the water out of the hydrant like you all do at home. They went over to an irrigation ditch and took their bucket and dumped the water out and poured it in the radiator. Now, the bottom of the radiator started filling up with mud. Now, you can see what the problem I was having. I didn't think that far in advance to tell them you got to go get tap water to put in there. but there's some of them still running. I'm kind of proud of that. I'm kind of proud of all the four-wheel drive tractors that went to Florida. George Cooper and I did a lot of business down there. A lot of business. And I'm very, very proud of it. But I really think what you come down to is, people have always said, Bud, do you have any regrets? Sinatra says, oh, I've had a few. But I guess the biggest regret, ladies and gentlemen, that I have had in my life, and if I knew now what I knew then, this tractor right here would have been born. That was the 2+2 I'm talking about right here. I didn't have the nerve to look a man in the eye and say, you don't know a damn thing about farming. He'd fired me, and I had to have 3 months to get my retirement, and I was going to get my 3 months. That's the only regret that I have, that I didn't fight hard enough for that tractor. And I'm sincere and honest in saying that. Now, let me show you. She's a beaut. I don't know where I put her now. There she is. Now, one of the things that dealers used to all have a good time with me with, there it is. We wouldn't have had STS, we'd had 72, 74, and that L10 Cummins engine will fit right in that hood, I can assure you that. Now somebody said, why don't you put an 855 in there? Oh, hell, we don't need an 855 in there. But anyway, that's what she'd basically look like with a new cab. Been a great tractor. Now, what final incentive would I have had if I'd have had all of this? Still got the gray hair. Ladies and gentlemen, what we do is, I don't know how they do it now. We would bring out a new product. That product, after we did some checking on it and make sure that everything was okay, shipped the tractor to Waterloo, Iowa, engineering, Yellow Wheel Engineering. If the Lord had let me had this tractor right here, I'll tell you exactly what I was going to do. I was going to get that microphone out like that. I was going to get in the seat of this tractor right here, and I was going to have every dealer in the United States and dealer salesman meet me in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And we're going to drive that tractor right up to the front door of Waterloo, Iowa. I'm going to honk that horn and say, come out and look at this son of a bitch. Here's your tractor. Now, I'm not saying, gentlemen, that the world, ladies and gentlemen, the world would be any different. But I know this. You start putting all that stuff together. Everything we were doing with the combine. And remember this, they got scaled back. Cotton pickers got scaled back. Planters got scaled back. Everybody got scaled back. Plus, we all got pay cuts. I had 5% pay cuts. That's really a good blow to help you out. But when you really get down to the final analysis, people do business with people. And a handshake is still the best deed in the world. Any regrets? No, I'm proud. I've had more fun standing here talking to some of you people today than I've had in a long time. A long time. And I'll stand here and I'll talk to you guys the rest of the day until I become hoarse. Now, some things I can't remember anymore, but I loved everything I did. I loved everything I did with the Harvester Company. I loved everywhere I went, from Geelong, Australia, to all across Europe. I loved it. And I knew it was a better product. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this. I'm going to have to take all my little stuff, fold it back up, and put it in my box. And next week, I'll be 78 years old. And I don't know what Mrs. and I'll do. We might have a piece of chocolate cake. I don't know what we'll do, but I can't stand on my feet that long much anymore. But I'll be here tomorrow. And if you got friends that want to come here, I'll do the same show tomorrow. I'll miss a few words, and I'll probably add some more. And I'm sorry to say, we've been here entirely too long. The brain can only absorb what the tailbone can take. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it.
There's only one Bud Youle. He's going to be with us again tonight at the Four Producers. And if you have any connection, I don't care if it's 3 generations away, with an ice dealer or the company, please come and you'll get to hear some more. We are so proud that Bud and Vaughn and some of our old harvester colleagues are here. Bud, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been such a
Dan, it's a
wonderful guy.
pleasure.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure. Thank you.